Hare Krishna. Namaste. Chapter 5, entitled as Karma Sannyasa Yogam. Sloka 10. Brahmaṇy karmāṇi saṅgaṁ tyaktvā karoti lipyate na sa pāpena padma-patram ivāmbhasā. From the previous two slokas, we understood that the doership has to be the senses, not the Atma. We also saw how it is the senses are the doer and why so, and what are the right way of thinking that Atma is not the doer. The connection to today's sloka is the same message but further elaborated. How the person, though works in that consciousness, doesn't get affected with any sins, and it has been explained through an analogy of lotus leaf. And also, reason for this sloka is that Arjuna raised 3 questions in his mind, and those 3 questions are also being answered in this 10th sloka. Let's see those 3 questions, and then we can get into the details of the sloka. First question: holding the thought that he doesn't do any act on his own, and that any action of his is only because of the association of the indriyas, the senses, prana, etc. The eye is seeing, ear is hearing, and so forth. Therefore, his actions doesn't give you any papa or punya. We understood so far these things from the previous sloka. Now, if the same person who is in that consciousness that I am not the doer engages in action but towards a desired result, will he be free from papa and punya also? Will it be wrong? Example: having a clear understanding of I am not the doer, the senses are the doer, and engages in Jyotishtoma Yaga, which gives heaven as the result, goal. He engages in this homa with a clear understanding that I am not the doer of this yaga. They are done by the senses because I am associated with the senses. But the same person desires to go to heaven. Is that good? Because he is still thinking as per the previous sloka that he is not the doer. Will he be not affected by papa and punya? This is the first question. We all know in truth the Atma is the actual doer. It can't be anything else. Then in that case, what is wrong to say the truth? That is, when the person is in fact the doer, what do we gain by convincing that he is not the doer and that all his actions are emanate from his association with the indriyas and etc.? So that's the second question. The third question is, how much ever one thinks and holds this view and engages in activities that is not the doer, they are still in contact with the body, the prakriti, which will only generate the delusion in his mind that the body is the self, because his connection to the prakriti still exists, it's not cut off. Therefore, for him to think that he is not the doer, the indriyas are the doers, is not going to be a easy one. In this 10th sloka, the first 2 lines, Krishna addresses the first question, and the last 2 lines he addresses the next 2 questions. Before we get into the answer of this one, let's understand the word by word meaning of this sloka. Yaha, the karma yogi who, karmāṇi, all his works, brahmaṇy ādhāya, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or it can be ascribing to the instruments of the Prakriti. We'll see the different meaning of this term. Saṅgaṁ tyaktvā, unattached to the result. Karoti, performs. Saha, he, padma-patram, a lotus leaf. Ivāmbhasā eva, in water, just as pāpena, by the sin of bondage with samsara, na lipyate, is not smeared or affected. Here, the word Brahma is interpreted differently by different acharyas. When we take this from the devotional perspective, then the Brahma is taken as Supreme Personality of Godhead, that one offers all the results to the Lord. Whereas one who is karma yogi, who has not developed the true devotion towards the Lord, will consider that this is all done by the Prakriti, which is Brahma. Now, staying within the subject of Karma Yoga in context and connection with the previous verse, the subject is the doership of Jiva related to the body, senses and prana, arising from pradhana and not something different from that. Brahma Sabda is also mentioned in 14th chapter, 3rd sloka, as Prakriti, Brahma Yonir Mahat Brahma. Also, the Brahma term is certainly not meant to be taken as Atma in this context, because the self is not the doer as a subject for discussion that we are having now. Then it will be inappropriate to interpret here that stating by dedicating the doership to the Atma. That will be a wrong understanding. So it is not Atma for sure. The meaning of this sloka is that it is not enough if one engaged in activities with the clear thought, I am not the doer, the doership I have is due to the association of the senses. Act should be performed with the detachment towards the results of one's action. When it is done this manner, just as water does not stick to the lotus leaf, the sins does not stick or occur to such person. And also the same sloka, when we see it in a devotional aspect, it is translated as one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Now, the shabda, the term pāpena, here the papam refers to the delusion of considering the body as the self. A person who considers himself to the body, a person who doesn't know is different from the body itself, said to be a papa, sin. The scriptures declare that he who does not know the truth regarding the self as it actually is, namely that it is different from the body, it is subservient of the Supreme Lord, it is wholly dependent on the Lord, has committed every sin that one can think of from the scriptures. So it is clearly conveyed here that the sin causing bondage, that is the delusion regarding the self and body, so that sin will not touch this person. because this person works with a proper consciousness that he is not the body and the works are done by the senses. And therefore, he is not touched by the sin that has been mentioned in this sloka. Now the question might arise that, is the lotus leaf an appropriate example here? Like its contact with water, he too, the person who's in that consciousness, is too connected with sin. So how this example will be right? The answer is, the example of lotus leaf is adapted not to establish lack of contact. Lotus is born in the pond and grows in it. Though in the water all the while, it is not wetted by water and not destroyed. So similarly, if the person keeps engaged in activities in the manner explained earlier, actions do not contaminate him, even though he exists in contact with the Prakriti, and hence he is free from the wrong identification of the self with body. So it's an appropriate analogy, lotus leaf analogy. Now let's see the answers for the three questions we initially saw. The first question, if the person who is in the consciousness that I am not the doer, but engages in the action expecting a desired result, will he be free from papa and punya also? Because the whole discussion is around this theory that I am not the doer. The senses are the doer. So that's fine. I am understanding that and I live with it. But I am desiring for a result. Will I also be free from papa and punya? The answer is no. Saṅgaṁ tyaktvā. That's the answer given in the sloka. One has to be detached from the fruits of the result. So both should go together. As we saw that I am not the doer is an important thing while doing an action, equally important is to give up the desire on the fruitive result. That's the answer for the first one. The second question we saw was, when a person is in fact the doer, what do we gain by convincing that he is not the doer? It is actually the senses. The answer, we can understand this with an example where when water comes in contact with fire, water gets heated. Is it not wrong to think that water is hot by its very nature? The water is not hot by its nature, but when it came in contact with the heat, it became hot. Likewise, one has to be convinced that it is through the association of the senses one does the action, not otherwise. So that addresses the second question. The last question, how much ever one thinks and holds this idea that I am not the doer, the indriyas, the senses are the doer, but he is in contact with the body, the prakriti, which will only generate that delusion in his mind that the body is the self, because his connection to the prakriti, the body, has not been cut off. It still exists. So it's going to be hard. Now the answer is, though he is in contact with the prakriti and the prakriti exists, the result, the sin that comes because of wrong identification of the body as self will not occur. So that's an important point here. That is, though he is still present in the body with senses, his understanding from the teachings will help him as he does any actions. Hence, constant hearing of this message is very, very important to stay within this program. As one does the action in this manner, I am not the doer and I am not expecting anything out of it, then this person is not implicated with the sins that may otherwise get accumulated due to the wrong thinking that I am this body. Like the lotus leaf, which doesn't hold any water on its surface, the sins will not affect him. Namaste, Hare Krishna.